My name is Jan. I'm from the Netherlands, and I am board member of Autism Europe, and I also am board member of European Network Users Survivors Psychiatry. That is the network for psychiatric patients in general in Europe. And we have now the idea, and I want to ask you what you think about if Autism Europa or you would support it. In Brussels, no, in the United States, they had the idea that we have now gay prides. I'm pride that I'm gay. There was woman pride. We are pride that we are woman. And it started with black pride. We are pride that we are black people. And now some years ago in Brussels, the Organization of Psychiatric Patients, Eulenspiegel, organized demonstration like in United Kingdom and United States did before, mad pride. In spite of being mad, we are pride on ourselves, and some people even say we are pride that we are mad. And now my question for you is, would it not be a good idea, and now European Network want to do in more cities in Europe such a mad pride. Would it be a good idea for you that Autism Europe would also cooperate with that? Because when you are an autistic person, you can be proud on yourself, or when you are a mother and have autistic children, you can be proud on these children or father, or when you are a professional worker, you can be proud on your patients. So would you support such an idea of mad pride, and that autistic people and parents of autistic people and professional workers would join such demonstration and symposium? What do you think of that?
Hello? Yeah. Me as an individual person, not being in the committee of Autism Europe, I would not really go this way. We in Münster had a network for autism. We work with schools and social and all these people. And there is an autism day in the year, and we come together and have a topic and have this team. And I think there are other ways to go this way.
I'd like to add maybe something off topic, but I think not quite. In Poland, there are some internet fora for people with Asperger's syndrome, and they actually tend to say that they are proud of being Asperger's, and this is in some ways better than being typically typically developing person. I know two people which can illustrate the good and the bad side of the phenomenon. The first one just got better self-esteem when he launched this internet forum, and the other one thought that in fact, despite he was not diagnosed, he was certain that he was having Asperger's syndrome, and he decided that there is in fact no need to contact with non-Asperger people, and he conflicted himself with his family and decided to live only on the Asperger's side of the world. So this is really serious, and I don't know what conclusions can we have out of these two stories. However, I think that for majority of Asperger's syndrome individuals, it might be helpful, as I see my clients that report their fascination of famous Asperger people. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that I think I'm uncomfortable with mad pride because I think I've met so many people with autism. Once they have their diagnosis, they're very relieved to find they're not mad. And maybe it's something in the translation. Maybe it's the Asperger pride thing. And I think what's more important is to focus on developing a more inclusive and more tolerant society, because I think the route to self-esteem is through feeling valued by yourself and by your community. And I think that I've met numbers of children and young people who have had their self-esteem battered by multiple social failures that are not all entirely their fault. Also, I think we have to focus more on raising aspirational thinking in people across the spectrum. They, I think, often have their hopes and dreams and aspirations kind of dashed because of other people's ignorance about their abilities and about what they may be able to achieve. So I think it's a bigger issue than having a day, or I think these things are important for raising awareness, but I think there are broader issues in our schools, in our communities, in our society about how we view and celebrate people who are perhaps not typical in their development.
Hello. This is a question for Charlene. I listened with great interest to your presentation, and there's just a few things I wanted to ask. The first one is, and I know your colleague actually mentioned the handbook, it's going on the NAS's website, but are there any sort of intellectual property rights there in terms of who owns the programme and who owns the information? And the other thing would be, do Strathclyde still have a role, the University of Strathclyde still have a role in developing and applying this programme to other parts of the UK, and is that something that you plan to do?
I think I'm right in saying that the material for mentors will go in the public domain. The design of the programme at Strathclyde very much suits what happens at Strathclyde, and so the principle of the programme can be rolled out, I think, differently depending on the context. My colleagues are nodding, they're keeping me right. The way I strongly suspect that the way it's being delivered, or it will be delivered to other universities, won't exactly replicate. But there are materials that are produced by the National Autistic Society. Maybe Anna would like to say more about that. What was the second bit? Sorry, you asked me two parts. I'm very tired and very thirsty, so I'm not quite sure. The second bit was about rolling it out, support to roll it out. I think the National Autistic Society have been a great support to the University of Strathclyde, and I think would be available to discuss how things have worked. But the mentoring guidelines will be available. The programme's not published as such. But I think the thing with any of these things is about giving something a spark and then letting it flourish in the culture and context of somewhere else. I don't think that for example, the programme that might run at St Andrews, if it did run at St Andrews, that isn't one of the universities, just a university that popped into my head. Say, for example, that university would necessarily be exactly the same at Strathclyde because the systems are different. But I think it's about taking a set of principles. And the principle that we've arrived at is that it really helps students with Asperger's syndrome to have some kind of formalised transition programme that's about more than orientation, that's about acknowledging that they're not fearful about the academic side of university, but they're fearful about the social side and the demands that university places on you. But Anna could have a word with you maybe about the programme in general. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you very much for the interesting communications. I just wanted to come back to Brian Rakoff, and we spoke to it privately, but I didn't know there was a discussion One of the points I wanted to raise is at what point of time can you evaluate the effect of a training? And interestingly, I mentioned to you the studies by Izzy Colvin on the trainings in Newcastle that very solidly showed that shortly after the training there was no difference whatsoever between the ones that got the training and the controls. And the results became apparent about a half a year to a year later. And I was wondering if one of the studies you were referring to had these long time evaluations, because I think they're rather essential before one dismisses these trainings as worthless.
All the studies I looked at today, I think the longest one was 18 weeks in duration, so we had a pre-post time of less than 6 months. And the evaluations for the studies I looked at today mostly occurred right after training. Some of the studies have used a randomized waitlist control design in which a group of children received the intervention, one group was in waitlist, and then the waitlist group received the interventions. I don't recall what happened at time point 3, if you will, which might have been 4 to 5 months. In the future. So I think it's something that we don't know, but would be very valuable to learn.
Sono Adina Dame del gruppo Asperger, l'associazione italiana degli Asperger. Una domanda soprattutto agli speaker che hanno presentato degli interventi sulle abilità sociali, sui gruppi, eccetera. Quanto spesso, e se, immagino, spero di sì, viene trattato l'argomento del sesso? Perché purtroppo anche su stamattina, negli interventi di stamattina in cui si è parlato comunque delle donne, eccetera, il discorso sul sesso è apparso sì come problema del genere, ma sulla sessualità e sulle discussioni eventualmente che questi giovani o adulti fanno, per non parlare dell'intervento, ma sarebbe una cosa più complessa, questo ho sentito parlare molto poco. Grazie.
Should I answer it maybe? I didn't understand, unfortunately. I left. But you were asking about if the discussion on the sex relationship. Because nearly all the groups we are running in Norway are mixed groups with women and men, and it is a topic in some of the groups, but rather superficial. I mean, these are rather large groups. Some of them are not lasting for a very long time, and there are a lot of topics to discuss, and they are not. You can't go very deep to this question. In my group, that was very large. It was about 15 persons, adults meeting each time. I had to avoid going too deep into problems with sexuality, for instance. That has to be discussed in more private, with a therapist or not in a big group. And one of the roles of group leader would be to secure that the personal space of each person is not violated in a way. So for some group members might be quite touched and disturbed by having this topic discussed because they obviously have problems. And other group members were asking for the manual. Well, no, I am 30 years old. I have never had any sexual relation. Would you please give me the manual in one A4 page so I can easily read it and do it? And of course, this is not the topic then for these groups.
In our groups with the adults, they never talked about it. But the teenager groups, there was a big topic about partnership and sexuality, and that was a real process to talk about it. Yeah.